right. Yeah, I'll go ahead and start the recording. People will come in as they come along. So welcome everybody. We're here for the Thursday evening deep dive into the text of A Course in Miracles, and we are doing the Manual for Teachers. And if you're new or you don't know, the way that this group works is I ask, will somebody read? Let somebody read the text, and then if they have any comments, make comments, and anyone is allowed and everyone is allowed to make comments, and we all know how to act with other people, so I don't go with the raising of the hands, although if you feel you need to raise your hand, please feel free to do so. But in general, I think we can all just unmute ourselves and have a conversation. So yeah, that's the way it works here. And so we are in the Manual for Teachers, and last week we finished, let me see here, we finished the perceived purpose of sickness from the Manual for Teachers, and I for one was a little surprised, really, although I thought I knew this stuff, but you know, I really I really took a big look at myself and how it is that, you know, I am using sickness, and it's kind of interesting to contemplate that. But this week we are in section 2 of, I guess it's section 2 of section 5. I don't know how this works, but anyway, the main header of the section that we're in is called "How is Healing Accomplished?" So, so we're in section 2 of "How is Healing Accomplished?" So would anybody like to read the first paragraph?
I'm happy to read. Okay. The shift in perception. Healing must occur in exact proportion in which the valuelessness of sickness is recognized. One need but say, there is no gain at all to me in this, and he is healed. But to say this, one must first recognize certain facts. First, it is obvious that decisions are of the mind, not of the body. If sickness is but a faulty problem-solving approach, it is a decision. And if it is a decision, it is the mind and not the body that makes it. The resistance to recognizing this is enormous because the existence of the world as we perceive it depends on the body being the decision maker. Terms like instincts, reflexes, and the like represent attempts to endow the body with non-mental motivators. Actually, such terms merely state or describe the problem. They do not answer it. So I guess that's what we would call level confusion in the course. And that's a challenging one, to not be identified with the body and to realize that even those, let me see, reflexes, terms like instincts, they all come from the body, and that's not where it doesn't point to our faulty thought system, which is really where the sickness is coming from.
Very interesting. Does anybody else have any thoughts about this? Thank you for that, by the way, Dee.
Yeah, I do. Where it says line 4, line 5, if sickness is but a faulty problem-solving approach, it is a decision. And if it is a decision, it is the mind and not the body that makes it. it reminds me of lesson 136, sickness is a defense against the truth. And when I read in that lesson that it's a conscious decision, that blew me out of the water, because all my training up to then had been, oh, it's unconscious, we don't know we're doing it. And 136 said, oh, yes, you do. And then you hide it really, really fast. So I think this is just wonderful, because I've seen this in my life, whether it's physical illnesses or emotional issues or whatever. When I have said, I'm done with this, which is another way of saying there is no gain at all to me in this, things drop away. They do.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lori, for that. Excuse me. Yeah, I think Jesus is making it really clear here that that is the mind that is in control here, not the body. And even if you think you're not the one who's doing it, that's because you've consciously decided that you don't want to see that. And so it's a conscious decision that I want to see the truth. I want to see what it is that I'm doing. And I was thinking about this the other day because, you know, I've really come to understand that the body itself is not like a thing that belongs to me. It's not a thing that belongs to the mind of Lynn. It's just a being that has a life. And with or without Lynn, you know, you can, you know, give Lynn anesthesia and, you know, the body carries on perfectly with no mental access by Lynn of any part of it. And it's just kind of like an automaton. I've heard that Alon Halageva said that, you know, if you could anesthetize the body, you could cut the chest open, you can take out the heart, you can put in another part, you can, you know, you can do all these things, put it all, sew it back together, and you don't care at all. You're not upset about it at all. You have no experience of what happened. But then when the anesthesia comes out and the personality wakes up, it says, oh, what happened here? You know, I'm in pain. This hurts. No sensation of pain before that. No fear of death before that, because the mind is not engaged. So the body itself, it's just a machine. And so the idea, I think Jesus is saying here that we consciously, even though we may not be conscious of it, the mind that is what we are is really behind all of it. And the body itself is just an instrument, and the personality, the mind that says this is good or this is bad, that's just just a mechanism too. It's not what we really are. Does that make any sense? And does anybody else have any thoughts?
So to me, the body is the effect of the mind, though, of our thought system, of which thoughts, so it's just an effect. Right? So it just goes along with, if we're choosing the ego belief system, which I call the ego BS, the belief system, or the Holy Spirit's thought system, the body just is like your wish is my command. It just is the effect of the thought system that we're engaged in.
Doesn't it seem strange to you? If that's true, it has to be my mind at another level, as you were saying, the level confusion. It's got to be in my mind at another level where I'm not aware of it, because I don't even, if I'm sitting here, I can't tell you what my liver is doing, or my any part of what is supposed to be me. I don't have any kind of relationship to it. It's just doing its thing, and I'm just along for the ride. So, but even the I that's thinking about that is not the real mind of what I am. I don't know. Anybody else have any thoughts? And
Well,
who else just came in?
yeah, I think what you're saying about it being at another level in terms of like the whole ego thought system, I always think of it like every single of the 7.5 billion bodies are in the ego thought system. And then when it says I am responsible for what I see, it's not so much that you're responsible for, I gave myself cancer or I gave myself this broken arm, but the bodies in the ego thought system are robots. There's no choice there. There's only choice in the true self, or in the decision maker, or however you want to call that. There is choice to choose again and to see it differently. But the body, as part of the ego thought system, that small mind is projecting everything on, because it's the split mind. It's the wrong mind that's projecting everything onto that body. And it is a robot until we choose again.
Yeah, yeah. As hard as that is to, I mean, I can hear it and intellectually say, "Oh yeah, I understand that," but it's not my experience at all. And so I guess that's what we're talking about, a shift in perception, because maybe the shift is going to be from perceiving this way to perceiving truly. That's what I guess what Jesus is going to talk to us about. So does anybody else have any thoughts about this paragraph?
I just saw that it says, because the existence of the world, on number 7, the resistance to recognizing this is enormous, because the existence of the world as you perceive it depends on the body's being the decision maker. So, that is what actually creates the whole world. So we are in the world, so it's hard to disconnect, our mind out of the world, unless we, align with spirit and really, like you mentioned, the awareness. But as long as we're just here with the whole world, doing everything that the world is doing and participating in the world, that's why there's so much resistance to recognizing the truth of what it's trying to tell us.
Thank you.
Kind of makes sense to me too, that like your body can't make any decision on its own. Like your hand can't make a decision. Your body itself can't make any decision. Only the mind can make a decision.
Yeah, and that's why he's saying, like, instincts and reflexes, we think that's the body making a decision, but really it's the mind that, when it's engaged, is telling, I mean, because it doesn't just do it, it does it because it sends a signal to the brain, and the brain sends a signal back to the arm and says, move, you're being burned or whatever. I mean, it just doesn't exist. It's incapable of any kind of action on its own. It just is a nothing unless I'm engaged with it. Interesting.
Exactly, because it doesn't exist, because we forget that we're dreaming this. That is the big thing, is to awaken from the dream. That is when we are free from all of this. But it's to remember that we're the maker of the dream. I get so caught up in the dream, thinking we're the body. That's why we resist, because it's like we really think we're the body, and we forget how powerful the mind is. So how can my mind clear all this? How can my mind heal me? Because we're so caught up in the dream of being a body that we forgot the power of the mind. I think that's a big problem too.
And it also forces us to take responsibility. Because if we're just blaming it on the body or thinking the body is responsible for everything that's happening to it, we have no responsibility in it.
Exactly. The body is not responsible at all. It cannot do anything on its own. It's the mind. But we forgot that. That's what remembering is, to remember that I'm doing this to myself. Not easy, but.
Very interesting. Well, let's go on to paragraph 2. And would somebody like to read that? And, I think that we're really going to get some instruction on how to do this shift is what I'm hoping for. So paragraph 2, anyone? All right, Amy.
And what in this insane conviction does healing stand for?
Wait a minute.
It symbolizes.
I think you're in a different
I'm on the
area.
wrong page. Oh, I'm on the wrong page. Hang on. Wrong paragraph. That was last week. Paragraph 2.
Yeah.
The acceptance of sickness as a decision of the mind for a purpose for which it would use the body is the basis of healing. And this is so for healing in all forms. A patient decides that this is so, and he recovers. If he decides against recovery, he will not be healed. Who is the physician? Only the mind of the patient himself. The outcome is what he decides that it is. Special agents seem to be ministering to him, yet they but give form to his own choice. He chooses them in order to bring tangible form to his desires. And it is this they do, and nothing else. They are not actually needed at all. The patient could merely rise up without their aid and say, I have no use for this. There is no form of sickness that would not be cured at once. So once again, it's all in our mind. It's a decision that we're making. We get to choose. We have our free will. And if we seem to think that there is some kind of gain for us, the ego, then we're going to maintain that we're the author and we are going to have this because we think it gives us strength, strengthens the ego. And so all we have to do is choose. If he decides against recovery, he will not be healed. So who is the physician? Us, in our right-mindedness. Thanks.
It reminds me of when Dove shared about when he decided to leave the hospital last time we went with all the treatments and everything, and he just decided to get up and go. Now, doctors or anybody else around, they would be, no, you're crazy or whatever, they'd be giving you all sorts of reasons to continue your treatment, but I guess everything else is here and everything is okay. So the mind really, the right mind really won over the body at that time.
Yeah, it's just fascinating how that can happen. And you hear about it all the time, that people have like spontaneous remissions from dread diseases. But then at the same time, you hear, people that don't have healing and who die, and they can be the most faithful persons, or the most, they meditate all day, or they, do, all kinds of wonderful works or whatever. And, what is the difference here? And it has to be that you can actually say, because you've looked at every other option and you look at every other thought and you've looked at every other idea that could have come into your mind, and you've looked at them all and you've decided there's nothing here for me. That's and how he says, I have they're not actually needed. The patient could merely rise up without their aid and say, I have no use for this. There is no form of sickness that would not be cured at once. But you have to be able to actually know that. You can't have any thought in your mind, well, no, maybe I do need the doctor, and maybe I do need the medicine, and maybe I should take the treatment, and, just in case. And as long as there's any thought in our mind that there's a possibility that that we won't be healed, then how can we be healed? Even if we are healed, we wouldn't accept it. We would think, no, it's going to come back. Or they made a mistake or whatever. You have to really know that there's nothing in the sickness that you want, and give it up completely. I think that seems to be what Jesus is saying, and I'm not saying I've done that. but I'm saying I think that's what he wants us to do.
So can you all hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me? Okay, great. Well, a couple of things running through my mind from both paragraphs, but one, I have to agree with that what someone said earlier, and also with Dove about his situation with health that he had. I can tell you for a surety, everything that I've ever been receiving treatment for from the doctor did not go away because of any medicine or treatment. It went away when I said, you know what, I'm done with this. One year I had like rapid heart rate. They gave me a heart monitor. They said when I'm sleeping, my heart rate was at the pace of a jogger. They was just prescribing stuff to mask it, to try to slow it down. And I was like, I just came to a place. I had went to literally every heart specialist in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm in Nashville now, though, but I was living in Greenville at the time. And one day I decided, you know what, enough of this. and literally blew my doctor's mind. I went back and my pulse and heart rate, everything was back in alignment. So he said, what did you do? so I kind of told him a few things, enough for his comprehension. And then he finally said, well, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. And I could tell you story after story where something would go wrong. They really couldn't diagnose it. I had these symptoms. And then after I get tired of taking off from work, taking extra time, driving to the doctor, being inconvenient, at some point I was just like, you know what, I'm done with this. And all of a sudden it just goes away. But the other thing that I wanted to say that's really coming up in me is that for us to remember, or for me to remember, and I'm talking to myself, but maybe to help somebody else, but the thing for me to remember is that we have to remember, I am as God created me, all that we be saying, I'm not a body, but we have to remember when we came through our mother's birth canal was not the beginning of us. That was the beginning of our body image. We were in existence before then. Even in the Bible it say, I knew you before you was in your mother's womb. So I really believe some of the ideas about sacred contracts, even before we came into this earth, into this body life, that we were already in this spiritual level or world having discussions, making decisions. Like, you know, one of the things that come to mind with Wayne Dyer, that he always said one of his sacred contracts was he wanted to teach self-reliance. So that decision before he came through his mother's canal was set him up to be abandoned by his father, to be in foster care for a period of time in his life. All this helped him become the Wayne Dyer that we know, that we knew, and that we know that's still here. That motivational self-reliance teacher that he was. So I think some of the things that we're going through, we wanted to learn certain lessons. We wanted to understand certain things. And so the actual experience that we have in the body may be being dictated present tense. But so the tangent, like the course even teach us, the experience or the words mean nothing. You know, the physical experience or the words of the text mean nothing. So what we set up to understand once we came into this body, all is unraveling, you know, to help us the experience, whether it's sickness, whether it's being abandoned, whether it's divorce, whether it's whatever, whether I got raped, you know, these experiences, you know, the church would say, well, it's just the devil, you know, but it's really just these experiences are teachers, are awakening processes, are alarm clocks to help us to wake up, to understand, to shake us. So when we look at one person heal themselves, so to speak, or came out of their cancer or came out of their heart problem, and the other person's heart problem took them out, you know, it's before that, because I believe even previously, before coming through my mom, we had an exit strategy. We did not come in this, everybody knows we did not come in this body to stay forever. So the way we go out is irrelevant. Whether I go out with cancer or whether I go out in a car accident, the body, the ego makes these distinctions. Oh, what a tragedy. They shot Regis down, the police killed him, he was pulled over and the police killed him. So we make that more tragic. And we set up all these hierarchies, but that's all the ego. That's all the body mind is, just setting up stories and judgments like, oh, well, Regis died peacefully in his sleep. His wife got shot down getting out of her car by a mugger, you know, so we're setting up all of these hierarchies. That's us doing that. You know, one way is tragic. It's all, we have an exit strategy. Now, maybe in our exit strategy, we may want to teach a lesson even in our exit, like George Floyd. George Floyd brought consciousness, awareness. Dr. Martin Luther King brought consciousness, awareness, changed the way America is, changed the way not only the nation is, but the world is, because the world looks at America and is influenced by America. So we say these people was murdered, these people were shot down, but we don't know their sacred contract. We don't know what they wanted to lay, to surrender themselves, to be used in what sense, and not used for man, but in service of love, in service of love, that the consciousness of America can be raised. So I think we need to, while reading this kind of, for me, I'm looking back and realizing I didn't just start when I came out of my mom's womb. There was a lot of stuff that went on way back. A lot of agreements with God, a lot of agreements with the divine before I came here. It wasn't just, oh, poof, I'm here. Now what? You know? So anyway, I dropped the mic.
Thank you, Regis. Yeah, and I think, in fact, I know it says it in the, probably here in the manual for teachers, someplace I've read kind of recently, is that we do make those arrangements. We made them at the beginning of time We made a deal. All of us who are here together right now, we said when the time comes, we're going to come together and we're going to make this thing happen. And, you know, I mean, you and I, we've been together since the beginning. So I think you're right. I think, you know, nothing happens by accident, and that all of these things are the lessons that we ask to learn so that we can, you know, release the world. You know, otherwise, you know, we're just going to be stuck here forever, and that's not possible. Anybody else have any thoughts about that or anything else in this paragraph?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that line, salvation is a collaborative venture, is in chapter 4, section 6, paragraph 8. It says, listen, we're all in this together. Salvation is a collaborative venture. Yeah, we did arrange everything together. Dream role says the same thing, that nobody in your dream could do anything other than the role that you assigned to them. So everybody in our life is part of this awakening, this redemption, this resurrection. We're all doing this together as one, really. We're not doing it as two, we're doing it as one. I think that what Corinne mentioned, which actually shines a lot of light on this, the first 13 lessons are all about nothing I see here means anything, which most of you know I think is the whole course. Just in case you think anything here means something, just remember you're the one that's given all the meaning to it, which is what this section, this second section is talking about. That we think that we can do it by ourselves. And of course, that alludes to unless you know the purpose of sickness, you can't be healed. Yeah, we are trying to do this by ourselves. When I was going through normal medical procedures for getting rid of cancer, whatever, I was going through the medical process of thinking that, yes, I want the doctors to be part of my experience here. And then it was a January 14th, lesson 14 was being read, and lesson 14 puts a top or puts a kibosh on the first 13 lessons. It said, well, wait a minute. You know, all these things are causing meaningless, my meaningless thoughts are making a meaningless world, and a meaningless world engenders fear. And I'm living in fear, and I need a lot of medical attention to get myself out of the fear. And then lesson 14 comes right back and says, wait a minute. But God does not create a meaningless world. But God does not create a meaningless world. So the idea from the first section of this first part 1 of section 5, how is healing accomplished, is I'll do it myself. You know, thank you very much, God. I don't need you. I'll do it myself. Part 2 is the recognition and the realization that you can't do it yourself. That sanity, excuse me, or a sane mind is optimum health. And you don't get to a sane mind by going through the medical, I guess you would call it the football field of medical practice. Many years ago, I used to work in the holistic health field. And one of the naturopaths said, you know, when you get sick in this world, you know, basically we're down on the 28-yard line. That's pretty much what we call being able to go to work, lead a normal day, and think that you're okay. You're on the 28-yard line. If all of a sudden something happens and you get sick, you want to go see a doctor fast because you want the doctor to help you get back to work. So that puts you down on the 20-yard line. And if the doctor says, hey, listen, you know, this is beyond my expertise. Let's go to the hospital, and we have to do some whatever, surgery, whatever, you're down on the 10-yard line, and the hospital is your last defense against the goal line called death. That's pretty much the Western model of medicine. Now, you can say, wait, there's another way of looking at this. And if you look down on the other side of the football field, it's called optimum health. Optimum health. And optimum health is a sane mind that doesn't get sick. And sickness is nothing more than a defense against the truth. So then it's up to us to take responsibility. That's when the Course in Miracles comes in and says, listen, your only function here is to remove the blockages to your awareness of love's presence. That's your only function here. And I'm responsible for it. You can't go to a doctor, ask the doctor to be responsible. Jesus says, hey, don't look at me. He says, I can't do it for you. You know, I would be intervening in the most fundamental law of the universe, cause and effect. What good would it do you if I jumped in and did something for you? You would never know that you're cause and not effect. And I'll turn this mic back on over to you, Lynn. Thanks.
Thank you, Dov. Yeah, that is a perfectly beautiful explanation of exactly what Jesus is saying here, and with good examples too. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to share, or have any insights into this second paragraph? And if not, we can move on to paragraph 3. Would anybody like to read paragraph 3?
I can read it. What is the single requisite for this shift in perception? It is simply this: the recognition that sickness is of the mind and has nothing to do with the body. What does this recognition cost? It costs the whole world you see, for the world will never again appear to rule the mind. For with this recognition is responsibility placed where it belongs, not with the world, but on him who looks on the world and sees it as it is not. He looks on what he chooses to see, no more and no less. The world does nothing to him. He only thought it did. Nor does he do anything to the world, because he was mistaken about what it is. Herein is the release from guilt and sickness both, for they are one. Yet to accept this release, the insignificance of the body must be an acceptable idea. And I was looking in my book, and in my margin, I have a comment from a friend of mine who said, a lot of people look at line 8, the world does nothing to him, but they don't look at line 10, nor does he do anything to the world. So they still feel guilty thinking that they did things in the past.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And really, he's what is the single thing that's going to make you have this shift in perception? It's simply this: the recognition that sickness is of the mind and has nothing to do with the body. And so that's why, I think when Course in Miracles teachers and students start talking about healing the body, or that if you were, if your mind was healed, your body would be healed. And it seems to say that, but what he's really saying is, I believe that if your mind is healed, then the body has no meaning to you. The body has no effect on you. And so, the body could have cancer, the body could, I mean, anything can happen to the body, and you would have no, you wouldn't suffer. It's what he says: the healed mind doesn't suffer. It doesn't matter what's happening with the body. So he says, what does this recognition cost? It costs the whole world you see. It costs the whole world you see. for the world will never again to rule the mind. It's a complete shift in your vision of what the world is, and a complete shift in your belief in what you are and what God is. Everything. When he says in lesson 189, put down, this course, before he says that, he says, look at, take nothing that the world gives you. You don't want any part of it. Nothing you ever thought about, nothing you ever loved, nothing you ever knew. Don't bring any of it, because it has no meaning. And when you can put down this course and put down this world and come to your God with holy empty hands, that is a complete shift in everything, and your mind is healed. That's the end of the world. Your mind is healed, and you're no longer at effect of anything in the world.
Yeah, and that's the whole disaster. The whole disaster is to think that we could live on our own. That's exactly the separation, what it did. And living on our own means we live with the ego, which is a fearful thought. And that's what happened. When you live with this mind, it creates the world you see. And to let you have to change. When you change, you leave this mind and you go back with God, then the whole world changes. So the meaning I cannot do anything on my own, that's what we did, living on our own. That's what that's the result of it. Living on our own is living with the ego. So it creates disaster. That's the whole disaster. That's what he means by that too. So when you choose to let go of this mind, then everything else, the whole thing changes. The whole world changes, because now it becomes the creation of God and not of the ego, because the ego is fear. It's fear, it's disease, it's lack, it's disappointment, it's all those things. And that's what living alone means. You're fearful, so you create a fearful world.
Thank you, Kathleen. Yeah, that world exists along with, at the same time as the real world. The world we're experiencing is in existence at the same time as the real world. The real world is where there's no problems and no suffering and no pain and no sickness and no bodies, and you don't have houses and trees and buildings and streets and all that kind of stuff. So but that world runs concurrently with this world that we are experiencing, and all we have to do is decide which one we want to be in. So the world of pain in the body, that's the dream world. And if we want to be in the real world, then we have to leave the world of the body, the world of death, and the world of sickness and
well, that's it, because the world of the ego make it seems like it's outside, but the real world, that's what atonement is. You realize that it's all in you, all in your mind, that it's not outside, like the ego makes you believe it is outside. That's why it's fearful. But once you become to realize that the world I see is in me, I can change it. It's in me, it's in my mind. So the fear goes away, and that's why the ego goes away, because the fear goes away. You are no longer a slave of the ego telling you that all that you see is outside. So the real world, you are now you make everything in your mind. So it's all there, but you realize it's in you, it's in the mind that you share with God.
Yeah, I wanted to say, when Kathleen was saying about living alone, most of the time you hear that and you're thinking about somebody living alone. But I do remember in my earlier years when I was married and I had husband and kids and so much family around. So I was never really alone, but in my mind, I felt alone. So So it is, another evidence of it's really all in the mind. I didn't feel what was around me because I felt separate, even with everyone else around. So that was definitely a mind. That's an evidence of the mind being alone.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's really difficult um, to deal with the idea that everybody is alone. Because we believe we're separate, everybody is alone. No matter how close, you'll never be able to be as close to another person because of the barrier of the body and the barrier of the person and the barrier of all the blocks that are between us. We never be able to experience the experience of wholeness with another person as long as our experience is that of a body. So we'll always be alone. We're born
Yeah,
alone and die alone.
because with the ego, we're all dreaming our own dream. We think people are dreaming a dream with me, but they're just like figures in my dreams. So we're really alone when you were with the ego, because it's the making of the ego, and the ego does not exist. So you're the only dreamer of your dream. You're alone in your dream. So the real world is you go back to the one thinker, the one creator. So, and he's everyone, he's all the brothers, all the sisters. So you're all one. You're not, he's the maker of everything. Compared to now, we are the dreamer of our own dream. We're alone in our dream. That's what's scary. It's fearful.
Yeah, that's very true. You got to remember, when he's talking about mind, he's not talking about my mind and your mind. He's talking about the one mind where we're all connected already. I need do nothing to be connected to all. That is the certainty of God's mind, the mind of God. Love is like a glue that unites all as one. What is heaven but an awareness of our perfect oneness? I was thinking about the word gratitude, which comes up twice in the last 20 lessons of part 1 of the workbook. And he says, any one of these last 20 lessons is the entire course. And lesson 195 says, love is the way I walk in gratitude. Now, you can only walk in gratitude as the course is talking about gratitude, not like, I'm so grateful that, I'm living to a ripe old age. No. I'm not grateful for the things of this world. I'm grateful that I'm not a body. I'm spirit. I'm mind. I am of the mind of God. And then he says 2 lessons later in 197, it can be my own gratitude that I earn. And when you look at that, basically you're being grateful for the truth. That's what optimum health is a sane mind that recognizes that the truth is true for everyone, or it's not the truth, and only the truth is true and nothing else is true. Why am I getting my mind involved in, I'll use the word, the things of this world? As I think there's a line in the question, there are no, God doesn't create things, but the mind that is confused and is sick basically is very involved in the things like what's the best doctor for me to see, what's the best medicine, what's the best, always trying to manipulate and do things to help me get better. So there's a line, actually I heard it on ACIM Gather radio today. I don't know who was speaking. She says, give up your desire to correct and turn it into connect. From correct to connect, we're already connected. But if you think you have to correct something, who is the one that's correcting? You got to wake up and remember exactly as you say, Kathleen, with the dreamer of the dream. I just have to choose to see it differently. That's all. Thanks.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dove.
So then for me, when I read this line, it costs you the whole world you see, for the world will never again appear to rule the mind. So going back to gospel Christianity, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, the world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. So this recognition and coming to this place where the world would never again rule the mind is when we come to that place to where we're not all in. The world will never rule my mind again because I know there's more. I know there's more than this body. I know that I'm more than my mama's son. I know that I can go to the doctor. He can prescribe something. I can follow his instructions. I can get better. But I know there's something beyond that, you know. So like when I say, how's it going, Regis? Oh, it's perfect. Everything is perfect. How was your day, Regis? Perfect. Well, people, well, the world is still, the reason that is met with so much rejection, just about most of the time, every time I say that, people are like, oh, I couldn't say that. Because the world, everything is based on how things are in this world. Everything is based on how my body is doing in this world. Is my body sick? Is my money right? Is my relationships with everybody right? Everything, did everything go right on my job? Do I have a job? You know, so, but when you get to this place where the world no longer rules the mind, so like you said earlier, the body don't matter. You see people with cancer. You see people with all kind of illness, and we're feeling sorry for them, and they are happy because the world is no longer ruling their mind. Because what is God's perfect will for me? Happiness, that I be happy. That's his will. So the world can no longer affect my joy. It can no longer affect my happiness. It can no longer convince me that I'm not all right. It can throw every circumstance and situation at me that it wants to, but it cannot convince me that I'm going to be okay. I'm already okay. So I think when it says that the world will no longer rule the mind, you know, that's where it's really coming into where we're no longer at the effects of whatever is going on in this body experience from A to Z. That, yeah, we can be caught off guard, we can be startled by a situation, but we don't go to that place where our happiness, our joy, our sense of well-being, our sense of peace, our sense that I'm okay, I'm gonna be okay. You know, COVID, no COVID, Donald Trump, no Donald Trump, it don't matter. You know, I'm gonna be okay. I don't know how, but I know I'm gonna be okay. You know, so that's when the world is no longer ruling the mind.
Yeah, but the world doesn't throw anything.
That's what trust is. Trust.
Because the way the world doesn't throw anything at you, effect doesn't throw anything at you. It's the cause that caused the effect. So you're throwing this, we're doing this to ourselves. The world without my mind has no power. So when things happens, it is my ego mind that made this. It didn't come to me. That's how we see the world. We see the world as an effect and then a cause in our mind, but it's the opposite. It's a cause and effect, not effect and cause.
Yeah.
That's major to understand too.
What I wanted to say is,
because whatever, if you're sick and whatever, your boyfriend, your lover, of disaster. So it's cause and effect. That's why he says nothing happens to you without your consent. Nothing. But it happens so quickly, so fast that we don't realize that we're doing it. We forget that we're doing it.
That's what trust would do. So trust would settle every problem now. Trust and I need do nothing, which he says would save you 100 years. It's the same thing. If you think you're doing something or you have to do something, you know, as Regis was saying, COVID or no COVID, Donald Trump or no, I know that I'm safe. To trust that you're totally safe, no matter what this world is going on in this world, that's total trust. And it takes total trust, not 99% trust, to recognize that there's nothing to fear. That's lesson 48. There's nothing to fear. This is a fact. Unless you still believe in illusions, which means you still believe in the things of this world. You still believe that you're a body. You still believe in death. Lynn?
Absolutely. Do we have time to read the last paragraph?
Sure.
Okay. Would anybody like to read paragraph 4 of this section?
I heard it. With this idea is pain gone, forever gone. But with this idea goes also all confusion about creation. Does not this follow of necessity? Place cause and effect in their true sequence in one respect, and the learning will generalize and transform the world. The transfer of value of one true idea has no end or limit. Final outcome of this lesson is the remembrance of God. What do guilt and sickness, pain, disaster, and all suffering mean now? Having no purpose, they're gone. And with them also go all the effects they seem to cause. Cause and effect, but replicate creation. Seen in their proper perspective, without distortion and without fear, they re-establish heaven.
Beautiful. And yes, I mean, that's exactly what Kathleen was saying, what Dove was saying. It's the recognition of true cause and letting that be the cause, not not the world itself or the body be the cause.
Yeah. Yeah, the last sentence also before the paragraph before, to accept this release, the insignificance of the body must be an acceptable idea. So if I really come to really accept that the body is insignificant, if I come across a big person or whatever, somebody who looks threatening, you know, like whatever interpretations that I used to give to people based on their looks or things, that's completely gone. There's nothing, it doesn't mean anything anymore. And because of that, if I'm not seeing anybody, then there's only my mind. And anyway.
Beautiful. Anybody else have any thoughts about this? Basically, when we recognize that there's no purpose of it, all the effects of it disappear. And that's really when the text chapter 5, the decision for God, where he says, you know, when you decide or allow the Holy Spirit to decide for God for you, all the effects of your wrong decisions will be undone. In past and future, there's no effect left. And that means, you know, there's nothing left. There's nothing that here to confuse me anymore, because I don't believe any of the illusion at all anymore.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's the desire to give up the thought that you are less than your Father who created you as himself. Sickness, I think, in this world is the belief in inequality, the belief in being less or lacking or missing or whatever it is, that you're not equal. He tells you, listen, the goal of this course is peace, but peace has one condition: equality. And he's not talking about like all brothers and sisters are equal. I mean, he is, but he's really talking about you and God. I and the Father are one. Is that the Father and the Son are equal. I am not less than. Yes, Father created me. I didn't create the Father, although as Voltaire once said, he created us in his image, and we just returned the favor and thought that God was just like us. No, but we are the equal, whole, complete, perfect Son of God, literally meaning that we and the Father and the Son are one equally. That's the justice of God. No justice, no peace. The people say, well, we want justice. We want justice for everyone. Well, the way to justice is equality. But in this world, we think, well, I want equality for somebody else. Those people are unfairly treated. Wait a minute. I'm always speaking about myself. I think that I'm unfairly treated. I think my father didn't do well. I wanted to be special. He couldn't make me special. So, I got to do it myself. That's how you get down to the 28-yard line, heading towards the goalpost called death. You got to turn yourself around and realize that you're just out of your mind. That's all. You got to laugh. You simply got to laugh. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dove. Does anybody else have any thoughts before we close out for the evening?
Yeah, I just want to say something about peace, because the only thing that is asked of us to achieve peace is to be peaceful, quiet in our mind and still, which is not easy. But when we're still and quiet with no thoughts, that is where we hear God, and that's where God comes in, because now we welcome him. We leave our mind open, empty, and at peace, and that's where God comes in. Because I'm sure all of you, when we practice the stillness, those thoughts of God comes in, and it's beautiful, it's amazing, but it's to stay there. But that's what peace is. And it goes to, I need do nothing, and all that means stop the thinking, be still. That is trust. That is what trust is, saying I don't need to think about nothing ever again. Just be at peace and quiet my mind and let God do its own thing. That is the only thing that is asked of us, which is not that much when you think about it.
To do nothing seems like a gift, but we don't see it that way. The ego doesn't see it that way. So you just have to let go of the ego and do nothing and see how it works.
I'm grateful I need do nothing. You gotta laugh.
Lynn, can you hear me?
Yes.
David, can you hear me? So
Yes.
David, you said you have to give up the ability to correct and connect. So like I'm here with my best friend. Years ago, we were part of this ministry called Connect Sisterhood. And that's kind of like the ego right there. It has the correct, like, dictator. Like, this has to be corrected. This has to be done. So that stuck out when you said that. I'm going to say that tomorrow over and over and over again. Give up the ability to correct and connect. I really like that. And I liked what everyone shared. I liked what Regis said, COVID or no COVID, Trump or no Trump, because the world is full of inequality. And today they're legislating anti-Asian hate. Tomorrow it's justice for everyone getting shot. And it's making me sick. Like, I can't even watch the news anymore. I am I'm done advocating for equal rights. I think what I want to learn is how to reestablish heaven in my mind. The junk doesn't exist. I'm doing this to myself. Yeah. It's very good what everyone said, but give up the ability to correct and connect was really good. I was laughing when you said that. Really good.
Great. Thank you, Jen. Anybody else have anything else to add?
One thing about in the last paragraph, the final outcome of this lesson is the remembrance of God. If we look at sickness is the belief in the world. So the sickness in the mind is belief that the world is real. And that, like, even if we see our loved ones who have cancer, and we can look past that to the truth and say, there's never been any cancer. They never died of cancer. They were never born. They never died. They've been an eternal thought in the mind of God. The final outcome of that is the remembrance of God.
Yes. Yes, Laurie. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Laurie.
Leaving the body is simply returning home.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for coming in here on Thursday evening. I'm really appreciate everyone being here. I'm going to stop the share so that we can all see each other and wave to each other. And once again, thanks for being here. And we'll see you again next Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone. Namaste.
Love you all. Bye.
Bye.